And many of these beings are actually on the side of good, and the worst of which is Mr. Tunis, this faun, satyr, who is half goat, half human. He's the good guy on the good side. This is the classical, historic, in Satanism, representation of Lucifer.
You're traveling through to another dimension, a dimension of not only paranoia and delusion, but of idiocy. A journey into a wondrous land whose boundaries are that of pure ignorance. Your next stop, the BatShit Crazy Zone.
Well, it was just a matter of time before I did a video response to Bob Larson. Back in the early 90s, I remember listening to Bob Larson's radio program with my friends, and we would take a shot every time he spewed bullshit. Needless to say, much of the early 90s are a blur to me. Well, so is much of the 80s, but I digress. In this video, Sid Roth and Bob Larson talk about the horrible and highly satanic movie, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Bob does his best to paint this classic as badly as he possibly can to make it seem like some demonic-infested glorification of Satan, and fails. They then go on to demonize the Freemasons because, well, why not?
My guest in the car ride here to the studio brought up something. I mean, this is the world's foremost expert in cults.
No, he's not.
In deliverance, in occult.
Nope, strike two.
His name is Bob Larson. You've probably seen him on television. I can understand him going after something like Harry Potter. I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it is a no-brainer, all right. Any idiot who thinks Harry Potter is satanic has no brain.
But the Chronicles of Narnia, I mean, good versus evil. I mean, actually, the gospel in an allegorical form with this line and getting it. I mean, Hollywood has been so corrupt for so many years, and now we're finally getting something talking about good things and feel-good movies. And
Sid, this was a book before it was a movie. Hollywood, as well as the BBC, made an adaptation of this for film. Hollywood had nothing to do with the creation of this story.
And so, Bob Larson, why do you say that it's not a godly movie?
You got a good argument here. You're almost convincing me. No, not really.
Well, we'll go to another subject.
Well, I mean, everything you say is true. And allegorically, although Lewis warned, don't read too much into it.
Ironically enough, Bob goes on to read a great deal into this story.
You know, C.S. Lewis said, at times it was the gospel, and at times it wasn't the gospel. Nobody knows what he really meant and really intended. But the problem that I have...
Yes, please, tell us what problems you have with this classic book made into a movie.
...is that it crosses over a line in that you have a number of characters and beings in there. Minotaurs, centaurs, incubus spirits, and many of these beings are actually on the side of good. And the worst of which is Mr. Tunis, this faun, satyr, who is half goat, half human. He's the good guy on the good side. This is the classical, historic, in Satanism, representation of Lucifer.
Well, I'm glad you're not reading too much into this. The characters in C.S. Lewis's story are obviously based off mythology. Fauns, dryads, centaurs, Pegasus, etc. The four main characters, Lucy, Susan, Edmund, and Peter, are referred to as the daughters of Eve and the sons of Adam, obviously a biblical reference. I don't understand why some of you evangelicals get your panties twisted in a knot whenever any references are made to classical mythology.
So you mean someone that is in Satanism would go to that movie and get even more excited than a Christian?
Get excited? Holy fucking hell. It's a story based off mythology. When the four main characters enter the realm of Narnia, time seems to stop or slow down a great deal. This is obviously based off the concept of the fairy realm. This has nothing to do with Satanism. Satan is based off Christian mythology. Why would a Satanist get excited over this movie? Bob, stick to your fake exorcisms.
Say, I, Brian.
I, Brian.
Confess to Christ.
Confess to Christ.
I have committed homosexual acts.
I have committed homosexual acts.
God has forgiven me.
God has forgiven me.
You heard what he said? Did you hear what he said?
Yes, I heard what he said. Doesn't make any difference what he says.
Does it?
No! He's mine! He's been mine for years! And I'm gonna hold on to him! You'll never get him! Never!
What is your name? What is your name? What is your name?
Simply.
What is it?
Anger.
You caused him to commit homosexual acts?
Yes.
Anger at who? His father?
Yes, his mother. He has bitterness towards his mother.
You will not go until I tell you where to go. Go to torment. Brian, come back. Brian, come back. Brian, come back. Come back, Brian.
Well, they would at least identify with that character and get a little bit of a chuckle that that the theater is filled with Christians who are there.
Why would a Satanist identify with any of the characters from C.S. Lewis's book? I don't know. Maybe some Satanists would. Regardless, why is this a Christian-only movie theater? I can guarantee you that non-Christians go to movie theaters.
Thinking it's an allegorical representation of the gospel when you've got the personification of Lucifer on the screen hopping around in cloven hooves.
Nope, Mr. Tumnus, the faun, looks nothing like the planet Venus or a Babylonian king. And the Greek mythological character, the satyr, has nothing to do with your mistranslation of the morning star. The hooves, horns, and animal characteristics of the Greek god Pan, however, were borrowed to portray the appearance of the devil. In the Old Testament's book of Genesis, the serpent who tempted Adam and Eve with the forbidden fruit in Eden is commonly associated with Satan. In the original Hebrew text, though, no such name is given to the creature. The only reference to Satan in the Hebrew Bible mean adversary, obstacle, or enemy, and can refer either to human antagonists or supernatural entities. It is only later in the New Testament that Satan is referred to explicitly as a serpent. Despite this, serpents and snakes remain commonly associated with the devil. The earliest known suggested depiction of Satan is in a 6th century mosaic in a basilica of Saint Apollinare Nuovo, Ravenna, Italy. The image shows the devil as an ethereal blue angel, but this was ultimately shed in favor of a more demonic appearance with animalistic traits. A clear early link between Satan and goats is found in the Basilica of Sant'Apollinare Nuovo mosaic constructed in the late 6th century in Italy. In the mosaic, the blue angel to Jesus' left stands behind 3 goats, while the angel to Jesus' right is joined by 3 sheep. The artwork represents a parable in Matthew 25:31-46. In the story, the goat is associated with those not entering heaven. Some art historians like Alistair Sooke of the BBC claim that this is where the devil and his minions got their horns. Other experts disagree. The goat, which until the Middle Ages was barely linked to demonology, assumed a new role around this time. Montesano said, according to some scholars, this new role comes mainly from its association with the Nordic myths. Others say it might derive from the pagan god Pan, while British historian Ronald Hutton thinks it has more to do with neo-pagan revival of modern, not medieval, times. In his book, The Devil, Perceptions of Evil from Antiquity to Primitive Christianity, Cornell University Press, 1987, Jeffrey Burton Russell claims the link between Satan and the goat derives from the devil's association with underworld fertility deities, who Christians rejected as demons. Along with other pagan gods, these horned idols were particularly feared because of their association with the wilderness and with sexual frenzy. You were the one associating your devil with the mythological character of the satyr. The description of the modern devil has evolved over time.
I mean, there's some confusion here.
And the confusion is on your part.
And you can't just send kids who are Christians to that movie without an adequate explanation.
Here's what I hear you saying, Bob.
This is what I hear him saying. Just hold that thought for a moment, Sid. Bob, why would seeing a movie that includes many characters from traditional mythology need any explanation? If kids read the Bible, they will be exposed to incest, murder, rape, genocide, and slavery, to name a few adult topics. Which one is really worse, Bob?
What I hear you saying is that it's pushing Christianity a little further away from biblical godly positions so that perhaps the next one might push them over the edge.
Isn't everything ungodly to Bob I cast out demons, Larson? Do you think people will walk into this movie as an upstanding Christian believer, see a satyr, and walk out a godless Satan worshiper?
It's a very dangerous thing to eclectically mix the gospel and any sort of Christian truth with things that are outright demonic.
Greek mythology is satanic? Oh, that's right. Everything to you, paranoid, delusional, Bible-thumping pearl clutchers, is satanic, even though you used imagery from the god Pan for your concept of the personification of evil. It's the satyr that is evil. Nice scapegoating.
Now, I can't read C.S. Lewis's mind. I don't know what he was thinking at the time. He was an Oxford scholar. He studied the classic literature modes.
Yes, Bobby. Can I call you Bobby? I'm going to call you Bobby. C.S. Lewis studied the classical literature mode? I've never heard described that way, but I'm guessing C.S. Lewis set out to write an interesting story using characters from classical mythology, such as the satyr.
And maybe to him it was something that was archetypal, it was philosophical, but in a world in which sorcery and witchcraft...
You mean like the sorcery and witchcraft in the Bible?
And the occult is so prevalent and seducing so many of our young people today.
How is sorcery, witchcraft, and the occult seducing young people? And what exactly are the mechanics of this seduction? According to Bobby here, a good Christian young man goes in to see The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and comes out a godless Satan worshiper.
I think it's a dangerous step over the mark. And any Christian parent who's going to say their kids should go see this movie had better be aware of what they're seeing.
Are the convictions of a young Christian so fragile that going to see a movie with characters based off mythology are going to corrupt them? I've watched countless movies literally centered on the Bible, and I didn't morph into a God-fearing Christian. How do you explain that?
Bob Larson was recently in New Zealand.
Good for him. Bobby also performs staged exorcisms. You can schedule an exorcism with old Bobby Boy for only $295 US. I'm going to skip ahead.
Bob, that was a pretty powerful man, and I actually saw him trying to swing at you. Aren't you a little afraid when you're involved in a deliverance like that?
No, he's not concerned. He pays them well. They know that if they hit him, they won't get paid.
No, I'm not. No, I've done more exorcisms than anybody on the planet. I'm still very much alive and well. I've had my ribs broken. I've been scratched, gouged, bloodied. But I'm doing fine, thank you.
Well, staging fake exorcisms or buying into another's delusions can be a dangerous operation.
Question. What was he like? I saw the video. What was he like afterwards? What did he say?
It was really amazing. In fact, one of the most interesting things we found out when this whole thing was over with, he said, I need to take you to my car.
Wow. Well, this turned even weirder.
So he took us to his car and pulled out an axe.
Oy vey.
He said, I had this axe. I was on my way to murder somebody.
Oh, come on. He was on his way to murder someone and decided to stop and attend a guest appearance of you in New Zealand? This would be laughable if gullible people seeking attention were forking out nearly $300 to have what they believe to be a demonic or evil spirits troubling them cast out, or at least what they project as the reason for their mental illness.
I couldn't take it anymore. I was going to kill. And he said, I don't need this anymore.
But Bobby, you reported this to the local police just in case, right?
Take the axe. So I took the axe and I handed it to one of the pastors who was there. This is a Christian man.
And what did that pastor do with the axe? Is it currently residing in a local church? Can people view the supposed relic of your exorcism ability, Bobby? Are there any news articles outlining how you miraculously prevented a possible murder? Seems that would have been newsworthy, even if just locally.
This is a man struggling to love God, but so eaten up with rage inside for this horrible thing that his father did to him. And coming back to what we said a little earlier, let me just point out something. When you deal with the devil like I do, when you're constantly having these kind of power encounters with the forces of darkness, that's why you take everything much more seriously than the average Christian would.
You want people to take these things seriously, and I believe that abuse is a serious issue. But you use such dishonest tactics to make your points. It's as if you do not take these things seriously. Other people do. We have investigative, medical, and counseling services that deal with these issues every single day, multiple times per day.
All right, let me ask you this.
Sure thing, Sid. You can ask me anything.
Howard Stern. Well, maybe the Howard Stern of Australia. What do you think would happen if Bob Larson has a one-on-one encounter with the Howard Stern of Australia. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this word.
A legitimate, unscripted, and truthful one-on-one?
Bob, I don't get it. I just saw this deliverance you did. Mm-hmm. Now you go to a man that is one of the most filthy, foul-mouthed people, the Howard Stern, if you will, of Australia.
Yes.
You're sitting next to him just like me. You're a real glutton. Why'd you do this?
For money, notoriety, and his own overinflated ego said, why else would he do it?
Why not do it? I mean, why not step right into, why not be Daniel going in the den?
Let's go to that clip right now.
Kyle Sandlins, who recently passed away in January of 2021, was quite the shock jock and seemed to push the envelope on everything. The fact that he agreed to do this was most likely either paid by Bobby Boy or a favor for a friend. Either way, this exorcism, and I'm using air quotes, was kind of timid compared to most of Bobby's supposed expulsions of demons.
We are here in the studios. Kyle is currently getting perked because he is having an exorcism in just a moment. We have Bob Larson here, who is the exorcist.
His parents, who should have protected him, loved him, and affirmed him, did not. And they handed him over to the devil. Then when he was 14, he sealed the deal.
Do you believe that, Kyle?
Yeah, I do actually. Have you ever seen anything? Like, you have known me for years. Have you seen me?
I see two sides to Kyle. I see a really beautiful person.
Absolutely.
and just the nicest person you could ever meet. And then every now and again, I will see what I think is the devil.
What do you see?
I see an evilness.
Bearing in mind, we are on the radio, and all you can do is hear. When I look at Bob, I can't actually speak.
So what's that a sign of?
And I feel like
Bob?
I'm shaking inside.
Because that's what's
it's
inside
stirring
him.
It up.
Yeah, it's stirring it up. It doesn't want to show up. Last thing in the world it want to do is show up right here on the radio station right now.
Bob.
You mean Bobby.
I mean, we Jewish people have a word. It's called chutzpah. It means nerve.
I think I have it.
So what happened after this deliverance I assume it was national radio?
National radio. The whole country heard it. You know, this guy is known for just, chewing people, spitting them out. I walked in there, he's like a puppy dog. He was scared.
Yeah, it was quite the outrageous spectacle. If I hadn't have seen it with my own eyes, I would not have believed it actually happened.
He was actually frightened.
I saw.
But it wasn't me. It was the power of God preceding me. And I just confronted him about his issues, his life, his demons, everything. And I started praying over him, and he froze and couldn't speak.
Too bad you didn't record that part. Taking into consideration that Bobby and this shock jock Kyle will do literally anything for attention, money, and popularity, it's really not that shocking. Oh, and I like this graphic. Bob Larson, he casts out demons.
He literally could not speak. God just froze him on the spot and shut his mouth, and he literally could not say a word.
Bobby, in the clip we just saw, he was speaking. You just showed us the clip.
And afterwards, I shared Christ with him off the air. As I was leaving the studio, another guy walked up who was one of the people involved as a producer, and he said, I've been witnessing to this guy. I've been sharing Christ with him. So it was a God encounter. What it shows me, when you are unembarrassed by the power of God and you walk into the middle of where the devil is, God honors it.
Listen, we both know Australia is a very, very ungodly country.
Whoa, Australia is a very ungodly country? Do all the Christians living in Australia know that? Seems like a pretty unfair generalization.
This is the most foul-mouthed person in Australia. What repercussion did it have on the nation?
Well, everywhere we went, all of our seminars were packed.
And packed with potential axe murderers, no doubt. Why did that guy pick the most cliche form of murder? He was literally a potential axe murderer.
It opened up all the media. I was on every major radio and television show in the country, secular, because they heard about this and they knew this. You can drive in any city in Australia and there's huge billboards of this guy. He's a household name.
Okay.
Okay, we get it, Bobby. Your publicist or agent is really good and got you a gig in Australia. You know, that most godless of places in the entire world.
Let's come on back to the United States of America.
Yeah, thanks, Sid. All the blood was rushing in my head being upside down for so long. Bobby was really excited about being on that guy's radio show.
Known as a, quote, Christian country.
No, Sid. The United States of America is a secular country founded upon freedom of religion, as outlined in our Bill of Rights and reinforced by Article 11 of the Treaty of Tripoli. Article 11 has been and is a point of contention in popular culture. Disputes on this doctrine of separation of church and state as it applies to the founding principles of the United States. Some religious spokesmen claim that, despite unanimous ratification in the U.S. Senate of the text in English which contained Article 11, the page containing Article 11 is missing from the Arabic version of the treaty. The contemporaneous purpose of Article 11 was to make clear that the United States was a secular state and to reassure the Muslims that the agreement was not with an extension of earlier Christian nations that took part in the Crusade. Article 11, as the government of the United States of America, is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion, as it has in itself no character of enmity against the laws, religion, or tranquility of the Muslims, and as the said states never entered into any war or act of hostility against any Muslim nation. It is declared by the parties that no pretext arising from religious opinions shall ever produce an interruption of the harmony existing between the two countries. By their actions, the Founding Fathers made clear that their primary concern was religious freedom, not the advancement of a state religion. Individuals, not the government, would define religious faith and practice in the United States. Thus, the founders ensured that in no official sense would America be a Christian republic. 10 years after the Constitutional Convention ended its work, the country assured the world that the United States was a secular state, and that its negotiations would adhere to the rule of law, not the dictates of the Christian faith. The assurances were contained in the Treaty of Tripoli of 1797 and were intended to allay the fears of the Muslim state by insisting that religion would not govern how the treaty was interpreted and enforced. John Adams and the Senate made clear that the pact was between two sovereign states, not between two religious powers. Frank Herberts, from Frank Lampert, The Founding Fathers and the Place of Religion in America, Princeton University Press.
What is happening here? There's a proliferation of cults, occult groups, pseudo-Christian groups. What's going on?
Yes, Sid, other beliefs, faiths, and worldviews exist. I wouldn't call the occult a religion, as it really isn't. It has no unified dogma. And as far as cults go, the majority of cults are based off Christian ideology.
Well, we're in a post-biblical age. There's no moral consensus anymore about what the spiritual foundations of this country are all about. You see it from the Supreme Court to everyday decisions in our public schools.
Morality is shaped by the society at large and rooted in our laws. America allows for freedom of religion, immediately breaking the first of the Bible's 10 Commandments. The remaining 7 commandments cover less than 1% of federal, state, and local laws. Laws which have evolved, changed, and reflects a modern society. The fact that we no longer stone adulterers or burn heretics proves we do not follow biblical law. Besides, there are many countries in the world not rooted in Christianity that have moral laws.
And as a result of that, the devil has free reign to basically do what he wants to do with only the restraint of the salt of the earth of God's people left.
See what that movie based off The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe has done? Now we are a society that is turning into a morally bankrupt, lawless cesspool of degenerates, and Satan controls every facet of our godless society. Thanks, C.S. Lewis.
What's happening with, let's take an example, Islam in the United States?
What's interesting to me is that after 9/11, sales of the Quran went up.
Weird. People wanted to understand and gain more knowledge of what Islam actually is? How bizarre. Almost as if knowledge is power.
There is now more accommodation of Islam in our culture than ever before, and it's ironic that you and I are paying taxpayers' dollars to make sure that the people who want to kill us have a prayer mat and an arrow pointing where to bow.
Bobby, stick to casting out demons and let others attend to international relations between America and potential enemies. Islam believes in a monotheistic deity just like Christianity. You have more in common with Islamic belief than you do differences, but go ahead and focus that microscope on 9/11.
All right,
This is nuts. This is nuts.
A lot of people understand about Islam.
Even Sid is shutting them down. All right, Bobby, pull in the reins on your vitriol.
But do you understand the roots of Mormonism?
Yep, mysterious gold tablets found buried beneath a tree. Next question.
Do you understand the roots of Masons?
No, Sid, actually, I do not. By the best accounts I found, it started in 1717, although some claim it is much older than that. But regardless, why are we throwing Masons into the mix? Why do you paranoid, delusional, holier-than-thou sycophants always portray Freemasons in such a negative light? They use this as a segue to sell Bobby's crappy books, so I'm skipping ahead a bit.
Now listen, presidents of the United States, the most powerful people in the world are Masons. I know that they're strong Christians. I don't get it, Bob Larson. What is wrong with being a Mason? That's just a fraternal order.
Well, that's what most people would like to think, but I would challenge any Mason who happens to be watching us right now to step forward and tell us the oaths and the vows that he has taken and spoken behind the closed doors of the lodge. And they will not do it.
A Freemason won't break their oath to their fellow brothers of the craft? How weird. Bobby, would you tell us words spoken to you in confidence by another? Would you voluntarily break a secret? Do you have any moral fiber in you when it comes to an oath?
Because they speak the most bloodthirsty of curses upon them and anyone else who ever reveals what they teach in the lodge.
I am sure they take their oaths very seriously, and I am sure the words used are hyperbolic, but they are not literal. I am not a Mason, so I don't know if each lodge has their own oath, but I found this online, and a link will be below. All this I most solemnly, sincerely promise and swear with a firm and steady resolution to perform the same without any hesitation, myself under no less penalty than that of having my body severed in two, my bowels taken from thence and burned to ashes, the ashes scattered before the four winds of heaven, that no more remembrance might be had of so vile and wicked a wretch as I would be, should I ever knowingly violate this my Master Mason's obligation. So help me God and keep me steadfast in this due performance of the same. Mr. B.S., who claims to have been a member of a Freemason lodge and elevated to the 3rd degree, took a similar oath, and he is still very much alive. Mr. B.S. was not severed in two, nor were his bowels taken out and burned to ash. Either he is the miraculous exception, or this oath is hyperbolic.
They speak death, suicide, and murder in the lodge. Now, it may be symbolic, as they argue, but the fact is there is no such thing as symbolically calling death down on your own head. That's a dangerous thing to do.
It is symbolic. Even though some Christians deny it, your Bible is filled with symbolic and hyperbolic language.
You mean if they divulge something?
If they divulge that, I mean, they vow themselves that, have their tongue ripped out, their guts disemboweled, horrible things.
Who's the spiritual head of Masons?
Lucifer.
Ah, yeah. The 110-year-old Taxel hoax reveals its ugly head yet again.
Ultimately,
is that
Lucifer.
your opinion?
The worshipful master, look, most of the founding fathers of Freemasonry were Luciferians. Albert Pike is the most revered Freemason in America and founder of the American tradition. He was an avowed Luciferian. I have his books. I've read them.
Bull fucking shit. Nowhere in Albert Pike's writings does he claim Freemasons worship Lucifer. This ridiculous notion stems from a single paragraph in Albert Pike's book, Morals and Dogma.
He says Lucifer is God.
No, he absolutely does not.
Yes, but then so how could a real Christian be involved in that if they know the head?
Well, they don't know.
It's Luciferian.
They don't know that.
I think many Freemasons are well aware of Pike's writings as well as the Taxel hoax.
So
if they don't know it, how can it hurt them?
It doesn't make any difference because it's what's behind it. It's the spirit, the power, and the force that's behind it that you're yielding to.
Have you ever prayed with someone for deliverance because of being involved in Masons?
So many hundreds I can't begin to recount to you. And I always know who to go for. I know to go for the spirit of Lucifer.
The spirit of Venus or the Babylonian king?
And the spirit of Lucifer is in everyone who's entered on beyond the apprenticeship, entered the apprenticeship degree, because they vow allegiance to Lucifer.
I've never come across any writings that Masons worship the morning star, Lucifer.
Now, in different parts of the country, you will have more Christianized lodges, but most of them are very vague about who God is. You'll have the Quran, you'll have the Bible, you'll have whatever sacred books they want to have.
Okay. What is the connection between Masons and Mormons? I've never heard that the two are connected.
Sid, the golden tablets were buried beneath the tree of Venus, Lucifer.
Oh, absolutely. Joseph Smith Jr., of course, who founded the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, took all of the secret ceremonies that are done in the temple, in Mormonism, straight out of Freemasonry. It's the reason the Freemasons hate the Mormons and the Mormons hate the Freemasons, because they're a copycat.
Let's switch gears.
Even Sid is growing tired of this lying bigot. They move on to sell Bobby's book again, so I'm going to skip ahead. I accidentally, on purpose, lost the next few seconds of the video feed. My bad.
I assume you had a whole team of specialists do the work because you're so busy.
I do it myself.
Why?
I do it myself.
Why do you do it yourself?
Because I have such a fascination, an historical interest in this. It's been my life. I've lived it. I mean, it's cross-checked and referenced by a team of people.
I highly doubt that.
But as far as the writing, it's myself. It's a product of what I've observed in more than 3 decades of ministry, watching this stuff.
Oh, so it's your opinion of these things. Let me guess. You'll perpetuate lies and throw in little-known obscure facts, sandwiched between them, just like Alex Jones does.
Now, I was involved over 30 years ago, before I became a believer in the Messiah, in something called Silva mind control.
It's in the book.
So, did this book give you powers to actually mind control people? And if so, has this led to your success? Are you still mind controlling people today? Or do you just peddle anti-religious propaganda and perpetuate lies and misconceptions? I'm sure that's in the book too. Right, Sid?
I know, but and you know what's so wonderful about this? He not only has what it is, what its roots are, what it tries to prove, but how to help someone get out of it. Listen, first thing is understanding. How many different cults and occult groups do you have?
Hundreds. So, literally hundreds categorized.
Look, there are a lot of books on this subject. Why'd you do this?
I'm thinking for money, notoriety, and to disparage non-Christian beliefs. But let's hear what Bobby has to say.
I did this because people needed a quick encyclopedic capsuled summary so that in just a matter of seconds, they can go to the alphabetical index. A friend, a loved one brings up a term they've never heard before.
And you can give them your interpretation of it, so they don't have to seek out the actual truth for themselves. That's awfully controlling of you, Bob. I mean, very kind of you to provide them with your perspective. Don't bother going to the source, just read Bobby's book.
What's that? Is that good or bad? They flip, they find it, and 30 seconds they got an answer.
Let me guess. So anything not strictly adhering to your interpretation of the King James Version of the Bible is bad. Am I right?
Listen, I went to a health food store, and a conversation is going on with the owner and someone else. And the owner says, I finally have found the ultimate, a course in miracles. This is a strong Christian.
Oh, that's just silly. When all they really need is the miraculous panacea of your Bible.
And this is the most wonderful thing. It answers all of my questions. What?
Oh, this is so staged. Sid, you know damn well Bobby isn't going to endorse that book. It's not the Bible. Therefore, it was penned by Satan himself.
A course, it's in the book. A Course in Miracles was received by automatic handwriting through demonic dictation through something called the voice.
As opposed to the Bible, which was written by God's voice through other people.
And it's got Jesus in there, but it denies all the cardinal tenets of the Christian faith and in fact seeks to supplant the Christian faith. It was received from the spirit world by a demon.
And the real shame is the demonic voices didn't get any credit.
The whole thing.
There seems to be so many New Age courses.
Yeah.
Are you finding there is an increase in the number of Christians that need deliverance?
Jiminy freaking crickets. What softball questions. Sid is just setting Bobby right up. Gosh, let me take a crack at this one. Why, yes, Sid, there is. Because there's so much evil in the world that is allowed to be spread by movies by C.S. Lewis.
It's just, it's so explosive that we've got 100 deliverance teams all over America. We can't keep up with it. The caseload, we're backlogged for weeks.
Why don't you outsource your exorcisms to tech scammers?
In all of our teams, because of the numbers of Christians who have gotten involved in stuff they didn't know was bad and they picked up garbage.
Those poor, unsuspecting Christians, you'd think they'd be aware of the pitfalls that you and your ilk try to warn them of.
I mean, you've even discussed Star Wars has got evil roots. In just 30 seconds.
Well, the
What's
evil
wrong
root
with
is
it?
it goes back to Zen Buddhism.
Oh my God. The horrors of Zen Buddhism.
George Lucas is a Buddhist.
Yes, but that doesn't make the movie a Buddhist.
But he has stated publicly that the whole frame of reference of the worldview and the characters is based on Buddhism, and he has said things like he deliberately concocted Yoda to be a mouthpiece for Zen.
You mean it's not ultimately about the redemption of Anakin Skywalker? The battle between good and evil and how his choices affect those around him? How Luke sees good in his father and eventually turns him away from his sins, the dark side? Where else have I read about redemption of man shedding his sins and turning his life over to the light?
Well, you know, one of the reasons that I'm so interested in you, Bob Larson, and what you have to speak in, especially this book, I wish I had this as a traditional Jewish man.
Oy vey.
I got involved in something called Silva mind control. It was taught by good people trying to accomplish good things. I found out the most deceived people were those that were teaching. And one day, a Christian had enough chutzpah, enough nerve to say, Sid, turn to your own Torah, your own Jewish scriptures. In Deuteronomy, the 18th chapter, God calls it an abomination to communicate with the dead, seances, being involved in the various occult and New Age types of courses.
Sid, studying the occult is not the same as New Age.
Now, I didn't even believe the Bible was real at that point. I believed it was just good stories. But just on the 1% chance that it was real, I said, I'll go into neutral gear and I'll just read the Bible. I mean, after all, I'm Jewish. And I got the shock of my life.
You were shocked too, huh? What shocked you the most? Was it the murder, genocide, slaughter of innocent people, the justification for slavery, rape, incest? What shocked you the most, Sid?
This New Age spirit guide that they had instructed that I invite into myself started cursing me when I read the Bible, and I knew it was true.
The book by the author Jose Silva instructed you to invite a spirit? What does that have to do with mind control? You know what? Never mind.
Well, listen, I didn't know what to do, but fortunately my Christian friend said there was a greater power than the power that was destroying me. I literally didn't care whether I lived or died. And I prayed a 2-word prayer. But the important thing is, I got the name right, and my heart was right. I said, Jesus, help. That's all I said. And I gave up. And I can tell you that when I woke up the next morning...
Covered in your own nocturnal emissions? Oh, wait, that's a succubus. Never mind.
I was just encased with the most love I'd ever experienced in my entire life. I tell you that if you could taste this love...
No thanks, Sid. I don't want to taste your love.
There is nothing anyone, anything offers to compare. And the love is the love of God. There's no other name